Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity, a show about weirdos. With your hosts, John Fahey, Aaron Peter, and Matt Brousseau.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity. It's a doggone show about weirdos. My name is John Fahey. Sitting across from me, not a prettier man under the sun. Unrelenting beauty. Say hello to Mr. Aaron Joseph Pita.
Hi, everybody. Can you feel how pretty I am?
God damn it, you're radiant.
I feel good. You want to know why? I'm wearing my shirt. I'm wearing my Profiles in Eccentricity shirt.
Baby.
Yeah, dude.
You're wearing your Profiles in
I'm
Eccentricity
wearing my
shirt.
I Freak at the Teak.
You are. And Matt, the guy over to my right, your left, wearing the Cocaine Bear shirt.
Provided by Stephen Parks.
Super fan.
Our friend.
Causes hot confusion depending where I am.
Oh.
What bar I'm in.
Yes. And our guest, one of my favorite comedians in Los Angeles, not a prettier woman on earth, Miss Laura Crawford, everybody.
Hi.
Hi there.
It's Laura Crawford.
Okay. That's not how you're going to talk.
That's our
It's
catchfriend.
Laura Crawford.
That's how she
I
introduces
say
herself.
my name, usually on stage, and I point at myself with a big thumb. Big old thumb in my chest. Ka-kunk, ka-kunk, ka-kunk.
Matt, my friend Michelle back home after your Blow-Cane baseball episode.
Oh, yes.
She said to me, she's like, I could listen to Matt talk forever about anything.
What?
She's like, he could be talking about shit.
Read him
And
from a
And
book.
I was like, a lot of times he is.
Oh.
Like, do you know about this dude?
Oof.
Well,
Thanks, Michelle.
We're going to be getting into a little bit of wrestling nonsense, but I have got the most Profiles-y thing in the world, provided by my friend, longtime friend, Mr. Chris Donaldson. He sent it to me today. He's like, there's not a news article that is more about your show than this.
Wait, is this the one you talked to me about?
I don't think so. I just got this today.
Oh, no, then.
This is from 3 years ago. Do you know the Sheriff Joe Arpaio?
Yes.
You know,
By Arizona.
yes.
Great patriot and humanitarian.
Awful man.
Yes.
But aside from his, racist haranguing of,
Yes.
of people, is he was very gung ho about attacking people into bestiality. Did you know about that?
He was
No.
he was against bestiality.
Well, I think what usually happens in this situation is he's pro-bestiality. He's just trying to not do it himself.
Well, yeah. Well, he wants to. He's very much highlighting the bestiality, and he got a bunch of convictions of people that were like
Animal fuckers in Arizona.
yeah, people that were like somebody put a Craigslist ad that was the listing. The link that you clicked on was wife for canine.
Wife 4, number 4.
Wife
Why
for
are women always with dogs? I've never understood that. I've watched a lot of animal fucker documentaries, and the guys
dude.
are always horses, women always dogs. Don't know what it is.
Right.
The dogs are good at oral.
Anytime I see like a girl
They got
walking
that
with
big
like a
soft
giant
tongue.
Great Dane or something, I'm always like, yeah, that
Yeah.
dog.
And he always
a big
says it to
German
me
Shepherd.
Whenever we're
Lopsa
around, there's a
Opso.
girl with a dog. Aaron always goes, she fucks her dog.
Yeah, Saint
You can
Bernard.
just tell.
Get that big wet,
I don't think you
big
can tell.
soft wet
I
tongue
don't
all
think
over
you
you.
can
No,
tell.
it's not a tongue. It's their penis.
No,
But-
it's the tongue. It is.
So-
See, it's spoken like a fucking.
The wife for
That's
canine.
why those women like them.
The wife for canine couple, they got caught in a sting operation. Guy was like, I got a dog. He didn't have a dog. He had a bunch of cops. You know what I mean?
Oh, canine.
Oh.
And they showed up. It was the couple with the wife that wanted to get done by the dog, and then just some other fella that wanted to watch.
Well, go ahead.
You know?
Was it Chris Hansen?
But in another very NBC-styled sting,
Ooh.
they would do this shit in Arizona for the bestiality stings. There was like a to catch a bestiality
Oh.
and one of these guys
Why am I sympathetic?
was this guy said he quote flew cross country to relax in a long soak of tiny horse piss.
You just wanted to soak in it?
Tiny horse piss.
Oh my god.
Oh, like a Shetland.
Miniature horses.
Yes.
A Shetland pony.
And so he comes across the country. He's a very old man from Pennsylvania. Like you're not even policing Arizona. You're policing this fucking weirdo.
And it's just piss.
And,
Yeah, it's just piss.
and they have the screenshot
Really excreted.
of the online conversation. He is horse lover 47.
There are 46 other horses.
LUVR.
Of course, you gotta fit it within.
And maybe he's born in 47 because
That's
he's
what
an
I was thinking.
he's an old ass man.
Yes.
And his
World War II kids.
his
It's
quote,
horse lover.
his quote
Baby
on
boomer.
the screen is "Are you really a horse?"
Oh, is this Mr. Ed typing to me?
God, it's bigger than both
So
of us.
he thinks he's talking to a horse.
What?
And the decoy goes,
An underage
Of course.
horse?
"Yeah."
It goes, of course.
YA, yeah. The quote is R-A-R-E, that's fine. U, the letter U, R-L-Y, a horse. Are you really a horse?
Yay or nay?
Oh my God.
So he flies.
Snort one for you.
He
Snort
flies
two for you.
across the country. He's talking to these fucking Maricopa County sheriffs or whatever
Maricopa. Yeah.
that are trying to line up these bestiality stings because this guy Arpaio is a psycho. What the fuck does he care about some guy
He cares about the
Well, it's
assholes
because-
of innocent animals.
that wants
because he doesn't want anybody else soaking up all of that good tiny horse piss.
So this old man flies across country
Oh.
with 5 shirts that he wants these 2 miniature ponies to piss all over just so he can wear them.
Wait, why is this illegal?
That's what he said when he got arrested.
Yeah, why is
That's
this?
what-
It
that's-
shouldn't be illegal.
No.
It's just piss.
No.
And that was his quote. He's like, I don't know why I'm getting arrested. He's like,
Yeah.
there was nothing sexual or whatever. But they said the
nothing
the
sexual.
It
deputy
didn't violate the horses whatsoever.
the deputies were like he admitted in the conversation he had a long history of fucking animals.
So what?
But still-
circumstantial at best.
Right. This
That's
fucking
ridiculous.
this show is
You
on
can-
the side of the
you can-
pervert
you can-
at every
I'm
turn.
firmly on the side
I saw
of this
two
pervert.
girls drink donkey jizz and piss on Fear Factor.
That's true.
If you can't let a guy soak his shirt in some good old fashioned horse urine, I'm
Tiny
sorry.
horse
I
urine.
thought this was America.
Right. Right, but
So
I mean,
you
Thank
can
you,
eat.
Aaron.
So he could have.
Thank you.
He could have killed that horse and eaten its meat, no problem.
Right.
But
not his
because
piss.
he
cross country to relax in a long soak of tiny horse piss.
Does that not just make you think of those old, in those movies when they show like those couples jacuzzis and stuff that are like heart shaped?
Yeah.
It makes me think of him in a heart shaped jacuzzi full of tiny horse
But
piss.
not before like an Indiana Jones map with a plane flying
Yes,
over it with the
yes.
dotted lines
Well, imagine it's like
into a heart
the
shaped
map's
pool
on
of piss.
fire. The map's on fire because he's like burning a
Yeah,
path.
you can't get there
to,
fast enough.
to Arizona.
But like, they gotta be tiny horses for some reason.
Oh, they have different piss.
it's cute. It's cute.
Why? He's like, I'm not a weirdo. I don't want any of that big horse
That
piss.
Clydesdale piss, no
Yeah.
way.
And then what's he gonna do? Get the 5 shirts and then bring them home?
No, no.
you
don't
wear
bring 'em
each
home,
shirt in a
John.
different pool of piss.
Yeah.
honestly.
You probably maybe you freeze them. So then you can defrost them and have the frothy piss on you later.
Like, you know how they smuggle like drugs sometimes, or they'll soak a carpet in it, and
Yeah,
then
Or put it in a
That's what
bag
I'm
and then
thinking.
another
Right.
bag and mustard
and
and
then
then.
up-
Right,
Yeah,
vacuum
the mustard.
seal it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
But people on the plane are like,
smells like
it
piss.
smells like the tiniest horse's piss on this plane. It smells
yeah.
like the most baby infant horse piss.
Sir, your bag is leaking?
Doesn't that defeat the whole purpose of the
Sorry,
huge
no beer
horse
for me.
cock?
I'm straight edge. Just tiny horse piss and little kids' butts.
There's
Oh
the
my
T-shirt.
God. Yes, I want pop chips.
So yeah,
Yeah, just make a popsicles out of it.
Yeah. So
So-
you can rub them all over your face later.
he had 8 bestiality arrests in 5 years.
Come on.
Arpeo?
Yeah, he was super gung ho about.
Oh, I thought you meant the tiny horse.
Yeah, no. This guy.
So because all of these things, like usually that comes down from on high, like we need to clear these numbers.
Yeah.
Like Arpeo's like
We haven't hit our
we haven't hit our piss quota.
Yeah, how come nobody's talking about dudes that want their shirts covered in tiny horse piss?
Good. We're talking about it. John.
Yeah.
We're
Why is nobody talking about?
Wait, I wish we could. Is there a legal defense fund we can contribute for this guy?
Yeah, what's the guy's name? Can
I
we
feel
look
like
him up?
I
Was
feel
there
like
a
the
piss
people-
starter?
I feel like there's to be a Kickstarter,
a
a piss
Kickstarter.
starter.
Piss starter.
I feel like the fans of this show should donate this guy money to fight his legal case.
Horse Lover 47.
Sign up to the Patreon. We'll
Yeah,
deal with it.
Yeah,
If
we'll
you want to make a special
forward it to
donation,
him.
we'll forward him the money.
Dude. Like,
What?
can you imagine the judge being like,
Huh?
so what did you do? I just
Don't
flew
make me
cross
think
country
about
judge is
for
like,
a long
"That's illegal?"
soak in tiny
Yeah.
horses.
Now, Your Honor, my defendant here is just a good old-fashioned red-blooded American. And all he wanted if he's only just guilty of flying across state lines, exchanging American currency for just a few gallons of warm, tiny horse piss. Now,
Soaked in your shirts.
Yeah.
that ain't legal in my
Yeah.
country. Well, I guess I better just turn in my keys.
10,000 letters addressed to Santa Claus, all wanting horse piss. Tiny, tiny horse
Exhibit
piss.
A, Your Honor.
I mean, can you imagine how much time it took this maniac to develop this fetish?
Probably one bad day.
Probably one day.
Tiny horses pissing
One-
on his clothes.
Here's what I imagine.
Specific childhood.
What is it called? The guy who puts the shoes on horses. It's a specific
Blacksmith?
word.
Blacksmith.
Yeah, there's a blacksmith, but there's another word. So he's furnishing horses with these shoes.
He's furnishing them.
Putting on the shoes, and then one day this tiny horse accidentally pisses in his face, and he's like, "Oh my God!"
Wow,
and he's
yeah.
horrified at first, and then
Yeah.
he looks at himself in the mirror, and a drop just dribbles onto the tip of his tongue. And he goes, "That's the most delicious thing I've ever tasted."
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That
It's a
is how the
massive,
movies go.
massive erection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to have an
Imagine.
erection as a blacksmith. That's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You might hit. There's an anvil.
Yeah, you might
There's an
chew
anvil,
it.
There's fire. There's fire.
You might chew it.
I don't
Shoot
want.
my penis.
I think you don't. I remember watching this special once about a guy who had a fetish for fire, and he was talking about lighting himself on
sucks so
fire.
bad.
He was talking about covering himself and lighting himself on fire and like having a huge erection and climax, like right before he would have to put himself out and like roll
Wow.
around and stuff like that. And he would just come from being doused in fire. Being
Did you
covered
hear in the one
flames.
episode where we talked about spontaneous human combustion?
Yes.
Those dudes waking up in the middle of the night on fire?
Yeah.
That dude would just
That guy,
nut.
yeah, that guy would nut all
It's
over
a
himself.
wet dream.
This is a
Yeah.
hot. It's not a wet dream.
We got
Burning
sent.
cinder of a dream.
We got sent a picture of one of the bodies at Pompeii they found. and it was
Yeah.
a dude-
Oh
it
yeah,
was a
the guy,
dude
the great
jerking off.
masturbator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's called. It's called the Great Masturbator.
It's something like
That's what I
that.
call
think
it.
the name of it.
Oh, when I do it.
But I have seen that before, and yeah, there's a name of it.
Man, I bet that guy.
So
thought
do
he
you
was
think
just
he's-
I've
blowing
seen a
the
lot
world's
on ancient
biggest
Rome.
load?
I've
Like,
seen
oh my god! I finally did it.
My question about that is that guy masturbating
Yeah.
with the volcano.
Yeah.
Was
It sounds like he's putting his dick into a volcano.
No, but like, was he masturbating or was he like one for the road
Right.
before it gets
Oh,
me?
fuck it.
Hear it?
Yeah.
Here it comes, and so do I.
Yeah,
Oh.
but it's great because you see his like charred ass corpse and he's got one leg kicked
He's
out.
stretched
I was like, I got the style, dude. I get it.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there. You kick that one leg
I
out.
think. Well, either way, we do know that he didn't finish,
Yeah,
which
presumably.
is sad.
Why? Because he would have made it out?
Well, he wouldn't be like still stroking it. Like
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
Unless he timed it perfect.
It's a lot of it's about timing.
Right.
It's all timing.
It really
My
is.
question: why don't we throw our trash in volcanoes?
I don't
That's a
know.
great question, Aaron.
Yeah.
I just thought about that today.
Right.
Why don't
Yeah.
you throw our trash in your mouth?
Yeah, it keep him from spitting up all the time.
Yeah, just plug it up with trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've tried the ocean. We haven't tried volcanoes.
Yeah, well, you know,
We should.
just think about it.
Yeah,
All right, yeah. All right,
Keep all those mole people in check.
Yeah, try not to nut while you're doing it.
listeners, join our Patreon and leave us a comment about why we shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or shut your goddamn mouth.
All right. So,
Not you, Matt.
Of course.
my brother Laura has been really looking forward to this.
Your
episode.
brother Laura.
Hold on.
My brother has been really looking forward to this episode.
You told him about it?
He's very, very psyched about it. This will probably be the first episode of the podcast my brother ever listens to. So, listening, I love you, Rory. Thank you for listening.
Rory.
Yeah, his name is Rory.
Good Irish boy.
Yes.
Rory.
Yeah.
Rory.
So, you were going to tell us about Sputnik Monroe.
Yeah. So I was going to talk about Sputnik Monroe. He is the diamond ring and Cadillac man.
The diamond ring.
The diamond ring and Cadillac man, Sputnik Monroe. He's 235 pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal that, with a body that women loved and men feared. He's going to eat you up like boarding house pie and put something on you that Ajax won't take off, and that's stronger than dirt.
I like that.
A lot of claims there.
Yeah.
A lot of claims here. So
Sputnik,
basically,
A lot of
Sputnik Monroe,
braggadocio.
Sputnik Monroe is a professional wrestling figure, and he represents one of the biggest cultural icons of Memphis wrestling, and most well known for being a hero of the civil rights movement.
You
an
say
unknown
is.
hero.
You say is.
Yeah.
Is he currently a wrestler and is currently 230
no.
pounds?
He passed away. His heyday was the late 50s. He passed away in 2006. So he's mostly got well known and reintroduced to people kind of recently. He's talked about Jim Cornette, who's the great wrestling manager, also from Smoky Mountain Wrestling and WWE. He recently talked about him with Steve Austin on his podcast, and people sort of became aware of him again.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, yeah, Broken Skull Ranch. So he's most well known for popularizing, he integrated sports in the South. It's probably his greatest claim to fame is that he is a single white individual, completely integrated sports in the South, which is sort of an amazing claim and something that you don't really think about or know about or anything like that.
A white guy.
It's a white man.
Yeah.
You see this picture of this guy, and he's 235 pounds, like he says. At his height, he was a huge dude. And mean-looking, villainous-looking guy who you can't believe he would be responsible for anything good. He looks like he looks like an early punk, like a prototype of an early punk figure in the late 50s. So basically this guy who's born in 1928 in Dodge City, Kansas, and his dad died in a plane wreck a month before he was born.
Flying to go sip
Yeah,
in some,
so
horse piss.
flying across country to Arizona to go drink a big thing of horse piss. So, he never met his father at all. And it's this weird thing with a lot of celebrities and actors that you read about is, they often have a parent that dies early in their life or they have their parents divorce early. It's sort of a mark of greatness. So, weirdly, he's raised by his grandparents in Dodge City, Kansas, mostly. He doesn't really even see his mother much. And he always says that when he was a kid, he absorbed a lot of his mother's pain from having lost her husband in this really dramatic way, and then him having died. And the funny thing about Dodge City, Kansas, is it's weird that Kansas figures so heavily in the civil rights movement in terms of the Civil War and starting the Civil War. Remember, bleeding Kansas was the thing. And it was the question of whether Kansas was going to be a slave state or not. Drove a lot of the action of the Civil War. But so he grows up in Dodge City, which, of course, if you ever watch Westerns and stuff like that, it's Dodge City is the bad place where bad men come from.
Get the fuck out of?
Yeah, you get the fuck out of Dodge, right? And it was a lawless place. And it's kind of funny because I didn't realize this, but so the cattle trade goes through Dodge City, Kansas. And that's one of the things. So you drive up cattle from Texas and then you go to all the big meat markets in Chicago and
Chicago?
Chicago.
Where they all that good chili.
New York City. I don't know. I was thinking that. Pie salsa. And so all the cattle go through there. So Dodge City at one point was so big as a city, it even had a bullfighting ring. Which I know, functioning all the time, like a modern bullfighting. And, that used to be a show that they would have, 5 days a week in the late 1800s in Kansas.
Like Spanish-Mexican style?
Yes, Spanish-Mexican style. So they would bring up bullfighters. They bring up matadors from Mexico and have them fight in Kansas City. And Dodge City, Kansas, and all those cities are just hilarious. So he grows up there. And the weird thing about wrestling at that time is... wrestling until I guess the 80s or the 70s, there's all dads teaching their sons because it's a closed society, which makes total sense because you're relying on people to keep the secret that it's staged.
Right.
And
it's like magic.
Yeah.
It's like magic, yes. It's very well kept secrets, and you also have to trust people with your body. It's another thing too. It's the people kind of don't think about it. It's you have to trust people not to fucking kill you or drop you on your neck or drop you on your head or whatever. So it's largely fathers passing their knowledge to sons or whatever. So he's born Roscoe Monroe Merrick. Even though, other people say he had this other last name. They'd be like, oh, his name was DeCrizio or whatever, DeCrizio or something. But it was Merrick was his real name. His name was Roscoe. And so he got his start. He couldn't do the dad thing at all because he's a bastard. And
He's a bastard.
He's a bastard. And so he gets in through carnivals, which is the other way that you could come into wrestling in the 40s.
For bastards.
Yeah, because at the time in carnival, so wrestling was sort of like a carnival show in that it was you know how carnival
Yeah, the
games are
strong
all-
man and the bearded lady and.
Well, that's
all
more like a freak show.
But it was still
the carnival.
Yeah, but this is like
circus, maybe.
Yeah, it's like a staged act. So it's
Okay.
kind of like how, you know, when you throw the baseball at the milk bottles, but they're all like glued together. You don't know.
Right.
So they would be like, we're going to have a wrestling show. And this wrestler, he'll take on all comers. So anyone can challenge him and he'll beat him.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes they would have a staged dude, you know, in the audience and say, I'll wrestle him. And they know each other, so they have it worked out. So they know what the finish is going to be. But you would also be that you would occasionally do take on all comers. You would really do wrestling
Fight the
moves.
public.
You would really fight the public.
Wow.
The only kind of safety you had was that you knew grappling moves. You were a hooker, which is you would hook guys by the ankle or by the wrist or something. You know how to do these like moves to like take them out. Basically jujitsu.
Right.
Kind of like
Right,
they do
take
now.
away their power kind of thing.
Yeah. So you'd like blindside the guy by like knocking him down at the knees or like hooking his ankle or something, and you pin him really quickly.
I'm sure they had to sign pages and pages of waivers before.
course.
Oh yeah, it was the 40s, but lots of legalese. You know?
Right.
They were killing Japs and put them in camps and wrestling people.
And the legalese, don't even get started on what they did to the legalese.
Yeah, the Chinese, the legalese, the Vietnamese, Laotians. They always seem like a weird outlier. But so he got his start that way. So he went to a carnival as a young man and saw them doing this, and he's like, I want to do this. And so he contacted this guy, Jack Nasworthy, who started training him. It was really hard to get trained, so he had to be taught, like, brought in really slowly, taught all these secrets and everything, and learn how to do life on the road.
He kept like showing up, knocking on the trailer.
Yeah,
for
and he's
years
like,
until
get
one.
out of here, kid.
But that's part of the training. is,
Right.
Will you knock on the door enough times?
Yeah, Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange. Every story ever.
Yeah,
Right.
it's the hero's journey. So he starts doing that, and it's really, you know, it's hard to kind of make a living doing that because you're out on the road and, you know, you don't have any fame or anything like that. And he really he's like a tough wrestler. He's not like a really good guy. He's not like Bret Hart. He can't like do a lot of moves in the ring.
How old is he at this point?
He's in his 20s.
So he's already in his 20s. Okay.
Yeah, because he's born in 1928, and then so like 45 he starts wrestling. 1945
Why
he
is
starts
he not
wrestling.
in the war?
He never signed up for the war. It's 45. He's kind of like, he's like 18 or so. I don't know why he doesn't go to the war, but he doesn't go into the service.
probably.
Yeah, probably because he's a coward. Yeah, he was 235 pounds. He's just a fucking coward. I don't know why he doesn't show up for service.
I mean, he wants to fight the
But-
public, so I
Yeah,
don't
not
know.
that he's afraid of all the Japs and Hun bastards. He wants to fight the good old fashioned Americans here on our soil.
You got to put on a show for the ladies and children left behind. You know what I mean?
Well,
yeah, stick it to them.
In about 45, you're 18. There's you know
on its way
about
out.
4% of the population, available population, is being taken at the time. So the odds that he would be chosen are really low.
But he didn't sign up for. I think he always kind of felt really like an outsider because he grew up. He was, you know, didn't have a dad. He lived with his grandparents, and I think he always felt like he was from the wrong side of the track, sort of thing, and identified kind of with underdogs who didn't fit in with normal people.
He was Don Draper.
looking for a calling.
Yeah, he was kind of always looking for a calling.
If only there
and
was
that's
some
why
sort of
he
compulsory service where one could get training and find some sort
Find
of
an
higher
identity.
purpose. I guess I'll follow the circus around.
Yeah, I'm gonna go join up with these carnivals who fucking rip people off. He seems to
That
have
lady's
like
got a beard.
no, he definitely just seems to have like a disdain for normal people. It
Yeah.
seems to be something that's like really running through him, and it's like
Yeah.
it's the best thing about like 40s and 50s wrestlers is the names, of course.
Right.
Because the women are all like Legs Gennaro, and the guys are all like Rocky. So his names were like Elvis Rock Monroe. Like he had the name Elvis that he worked under when Elvis was going. He was Pretty Boy Rock,
Pretty Boy Rock.
which is a Carrie Hilson song, right? Pretty Boy Rock? No, it's Pretty Girl Rock. Sorry. And then he was Rock Monroe, and this is
But
like
he wasn't pretty anymore. That he was just rock.
yeah, he was just the Rock.
He was the Rock? Oh.
Yeah, and he was Hulk. He went by like Hulk and all this stuff,
Oh,
which
that's
is funny.
cool.
Like, yeah. So there's this huge tradition in wrestling with that, because like you know, obviously there's The Rock, which everybody knows, but his dad was
familiar.
Rocky Johnson,
Yeah.
Right.
and then Terry Bollea, who became Hulk Hogan, his early name was Terry Boulder.
Oh.
I love. It's the
Right.
worst name.
That's bad.
Terry Boulder. Up next, Terry. Terry is just such a.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Terry's such a
It's
lame
a terrible.
But no matter what, you're a mountain.
Terry.
So-
Yeah, so
a guy
it's
named
really-
Terry has like a blonde page boy haircut, right? It's
name.
like
But she kind of, he did.
he did, yeah. No, he had a soft hair of a silky Chinese man. So he just he starts getting into wrestling, and obviously it's hard to get in this, but he had so many things that he had ideas and ego about this whole thing. He said win if you can, lose if you must. Always cheat. And if you have to leave the ring, leave tearing it down.
Wow.
That's a great quote, which
That
is
is so
win if
Trump.
you can, lose if you must. Always cheat. Always cheat. So the thing is, so he's a villain, and typically in these times, the villains were always expected to lose. That was always the thing that you were supposed to be laying down for the
Right.
hero. And he was really an early villain that said, I don't want to do that. And it
Yeah.
kind of laid a great tradition, or when he said that I'm going to do everything I can to not lose, to not leave on my back, to not do that. And like Bruiser Brody was like that. He would often refuse to lose.
Refuse to lose.
Refuse to lose. But, he was a guy who was like, I'm not going to lay down for anybody. I'm going to, protect. It's called protecting. You have to protect your character, protect your image. And then later, like Mick Foley would talk about that. He'd be like, why do I have to be like the bad guy just because I'm the villain? Like, I don't have to be stupid. I don't have to cheat. I can just be a bad man
Right.
who actually could deserve to win. So the funny thing, so he has
Like Hitler.
Yeah, like Hitler. Why do I have to lose? Why? Because I'm a 90-pound Austrian with one testicle,
No, but
vegetarian. Why do I have to lose?
But really, with this thing of like with the heels and stuff
The
in
heels.
wrestling,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah, the heels.
it's like
Love to hate 'em.
I would like find myself being like, well, this guy's just got a different opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would end up being like, I like this guy for some reason. He has some charisma, and you would end up liking, like when Shawn
Yeah.
Michaels was a heel and stuff like that. You would be like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's charismatic and like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like me and you always talk about this. Like to
root for
them,
the bad
you're
guy.
the bad guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hulk Hogan's the bad guy to fucking Sergeant Slaughter or whatever. You know, like
he's a sergeant.
fuck you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, it's
What,
an-
are you from the
it's-
beach in Daytona. The fuck
It's just like
outta
an
here.
interesting change.
Get back to-
It's an interesting change in culture because that is really like a shift that we experience. I mean, if you ever read like Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, and those kind of movies, they talk about
Right.
that shift in film that happened in cinema. That people were more anti-heroes, rooting
Yes.
for villains.
The
and
birth
stuff
of
like
the
that.
anti-hero. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. Yeah.
But
I think
in wrestling, they didn't do that at all until like the 90s.
Right. But do you think back then, when it was
the
just
Hulk went heel.
spectator stuff, do you think that there was a part of the audience that wanted the bad guy to win?
There definitely was, and because of the persona that he crafted specifically as a bad guy, because he had so many different aspects of his character that people could identify with as a bad guy, like just his personal style. Like we talk about that he had that blonde plume in the front of his hair. You see pictures, he's got black hair, black eyebrows, but this blonde like pomp in the front.
Right.
And what it rumored to be what happened was that he was facing an early opponent and the guy hit him on the back of the head with a wooden chair. So the chair kind of exploded on impact and some of the splinters went into his scalp. And then they said that like when they picked them out, he said the hairs that grew in there were white. So what he decided to do was just bleach the whole thing.
Right.
So he bleached that plume, and it just is such a cool punk look. And Jim Cornette mentions this in one of his interviews that like around the late 50s, if you look still to this day, if you go back and look at Memphis high school yearbooks, you see all these,
which I do.
all these senior boys and junior boys in the graduating classes of 58, 59, they all would bleach their hair like that.
No
and they
shit.
would do it. And it was just a style thing that pervaded the culture around that time because they all had, the duckbill haircut
Right.
and all that stuff.
Right.
So he really became, just like known for that. And he was super flamboyant. He wore like purple suits
Yeah.
and felt hats and Homburgs. And all these like fancy hats. He had he called himself the Diamond Ring Cadillac Man. That kind of started when he got to Memphis because it was a new territory. He wanted to make a name for himself. So he
Are
had
you saying the diamond ring?
the diamond ring and Cadillac Man.
Got
yeah.
it, got
so
it,
he
got
wore
it.
diamond rings. He had a cane that was diamond tipped.
Love it.
So like like it was a diamond trader or something, or like John or the guy from Jurassic Park
Right.
with the
Amber.
amber, but diamonds, and he was very flashy and looked like a pimp. Like when they
Right.
describe him, you're like, that's
Right.
what a pimp looks
Right.
like.
Yeah, that guy's always the villain.
Yeah, snakeskin shoes, and he just so he's super flamboyant, and then so he gets to the South and everything, and the South obviously is completely segregated around this time. Completely segregated, which is funny because it's like doing research on this when I was looking back on it, I was kind of looking at segregation laws, and the crazy thing about it is
It
like
made a lot of sense.
they really had it right. No, nothing like that. Yeah. They really had it right. No. So he had come from Kansas, which was obviously legally sort of integrated, but, socially segregated. He goes to the South, which is completely legally segregated, and which happened around the late 1800s after Reconstruction. After the federal troops left the South, basically, they instituted Jim Crow and everything like that. And it was just
That would have been a great wrestler name, too.
Jim Crow?
Jim Crow.
Yeah, you would have really kicked ass. My God. But so he just completely took.
I got a whoop from Matt.
But he completely took. He kind of didn't give a fuck about these laws at the time. He just figured, I'm an American. I have these things going on for me. So the story of how he got the name Sputnik is really fun. And I love this story. So he's driving to do the show in Mississippi. And at this time, you're driving around to do everything, and that's the only way to get around. So he's in Alabama, and he picks up a black hitchhiker, which is very unusual. You don't really do that.
Is he dressed like a pimp as he picks him up?
Yes, he's dressed like a pimp, and he's got a Cadillac, and he pulls over, and this black guy was scared out of his mind. He's just got a suitcase, and he's hitchhiking. So he goes,
"Come on in."
So he picks him up, and he just
for work.
Yeah, so he picks him up, and he goes, "Can you drive?" Because he's probably drunk. There's probably alcohol involved because, also heavy drinking. So he picks him up and he goes, "Can you drive?" And the guy's like, "This white man is asking me to drive his Cadillac. Like, what the fuck?" So he goes, "Okay." And he goes, "We got to go down to this TV station." He's like, "We got to go to Channel 2. And he's like, "You have to drive me down because I got to go do this wrestling show at this TV station."
Man, he sounds like a real progressive, bleeding heart liberal.
Yeah.
Hey, black guy, drive me around.
He's like, "Drive me." He's like, "You got to get somewhere. I'll take you there." He gets behind the wheel. He's like, "All right, we're going down to Channel 2. We're going to go to the TV station. We're going to film this thing. Then you and I afterwards, we can go out and go rock and roll. And we can get some ladies on the street." He said ladies on the street. I don't know if that means just like chicks who are walking around.
Hookers.
Yeah, why not?
They were hookers.
We're going to get some dames. Gonna get some whores. So he gets this guy in his car.
It was Satchel Paige.
Yes, it was Satchel Paige. And he was like, "I've got plenty." So they go down to the TV studio, and this is in Mississippi. So he's got this black man who's driven him there. He's like, "Okay, come into the studio with me." And the guy's like, "All right, I'll go in the studio with you." So he goes in, and then they have like a curtain there that's dividing the stage. So he keeps bringing this black guy out and kissing him on the cheek. So he kisses him on the cheek like a bunch of times in front of people. Every time he does it, the crowd blows up because people are incensed. Obviously, this is horrible. There's still laws against interracial marriage. There's
homosexuality.
Still, the homosexuality. It's hitting every possible button.
They can't even fathom.
They're like
triple negative.
What do I
man.
get angry at?
Yeah, they can't even decide where to go first to be incensed.
Oh, the TV's in black and white. Society should be in black and white.
Yeah, strictly
The
divided.
pimp is white, and the girl is a black dude. I don't understand.
Who drove?
They seem to be drunk together and in love. This is highly irregular.
Can you imagine the look on the hitchhiker's face on TV when this
I'm gonna get
this
killed.
dude is kissing him like,
And this is how I die.
I'm just trying to get to town.
Slow zoom onto his face
Yeah.
as he's like, what do I do?
Do you remember Don Cheadle in Boogie Nights? After, that's the look on his face after all those people get killed in that donut
Yes.
shop. That's the
Oh,
look
yeah,
on that guy's
that's
face.
John's funniest comedy movie moment.
Yes, that's that guy right
Yes,
then
I
with
can
those
totally
lips.
see that.
When those white lips are hitting his cheek, that's all these things.
His
just
black
like
cheek. Don't forget
his
the color.
black cheek.
Yep. You
Just
gotta
like
color
little nuclear
everything.
bombs go back in his eyes. So this is happening, and there's this old woman who's in the audience watching this, particularly freaking out, cursing, saying, "You fucking N-word lover, you fucking N-word lover," like really laying into it, saying it maybe 9-10 times.
Who would do that?
Yeah.
You can imagine. And
Old woman in a wrestling match.
something so wrestling fans are notoriously insane too.
Right.
And, at
Incensed,
this point,
insane,
nothing has.
insensitive.
Yeah, and it's not at this point where people kind of know. I mean,
Incest.
people have an idea that it's staged to an extent, but no one actually really knows that it's fake or whatever. And obviously, this is not even fake. This is not staged. He's spontaneously doing this.
He's really kissing him.
Those lips are really hitting that cheek.
Right.
And it's predetermined by Monroe. So the security is having to deal with this woman. They're saying to her, they're like, "Lady, you can't swear like this. This is for TV. We're filming this for television, and you're swearing. You can't do this.
You can't say fucking.
You can't say fucking.
Say the N-word all you want.
That
lady.
N-word.
This
Oh,
is
yeah.
America.
Yeah. We can't talk about fornication." So they say to her, they go, "If you keep swearing, we're going to have to kick you out." So she just can't stomach it. So she just says, "You Sputnik."
Sputnik.
It's the worst thing you could call someone at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't a swear
Sputnik
word.
Monroe has a lot better ring to it.
It does.
Yeah.
N-word lover.
Than N-word lover Monroe.
Monroe.
It fits
Yeah.
better on a poster and a T-shirt. You know, you get
That's
less
my
looks.
porno title. Though.
You get less
Porno name.
But it's also it's the beginning of like the Iron Sheik and stuff like that. It's just
Yeah.
you're
Getting
into,
into
like, all this,
the
like-
racial stereotype of.
The foreign hero. Well, that was the thing because there was different characters, like the Von Erichs. Fritz von Erich was like a Nazi type of figure, so it would be the foreign menace.
Like that.
So and then you had Ivan Koloff, and you had all these guys who were Russian menaces, and they were later in the 50s and so he was sort of represented everything that was frightful to people. He looked weird. He was dark. He looked scary. He looked like a monster. He had weird blonde bleached hair. He had a foreign name, and he was just mean. He was a mean dude. He would cheat. Just cheat
Always
all the time.
cheat.
Always cheat.
So did he after he was christened Sputnik Monroe?
Yeah.
Did his persona change to match the Sputnik name?
Yes. I mean, he really got, I think, less of just a tough guy and more of a real, just huge flamboyant heel.
But Russian?
No, not Russian at all.
Okay.
So you'd still have an American persona.
Okay.
So it's like the challenging thing about this time is a lot of people don't realize, I didn't really realize it too, is that wrestling does go through a lot of ups and downs and popularity waxes and wanes. And this was kind of actually a downward period in the late 50s because people had sort of gotten really used to seeing on TV with Gorgeous George and everything like that. And they kind of got a little tired of it. And so he had to kind
Really?
of...
In the late 50s?
In the late 50s. By like 58, 59, people were...
There was a lot of wrestling on TV?
There had been wrestling
Local.
on TV. There had
No
been like
shit.
local promotions and stuff, and there
Wow.
was stuff filmed out of Madison Square Garden, and there was things going on like
I had no idea.
yeah. So it was a thing that people obviously knew about. You know, LA had wrestling, San Francisco had wrestling, Chicago had wrestling,
I mean,
and Canada
wrestling
pro wrestling.
is older than all of the sports.
Right.
You know, so there's not like there's no basketball on TV really back then. There's some
Yeah.
baseball.
Yeah.
But, there's...
Baseball's hard to film, even like with the camera technology that they had
You
at
got
that time.
3.5 hours of film.
And you couldn't,
Film's expensive.
you couldn't see the ball that well.
Yeah,
They didn't
or
have
even-
Fox with a little sensor in the ball and a laser trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even like football. Football didn't really look good to watch on TV until I don't know the
Until the
70s,
forward pass.
80s. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with wrestling, you could kind of light the ring and everything was contained. Like boxing was the hugest sport because that was
Right.
obviously really easy to
Right.
film and do all that.
It was
stuff
good on the
with.
radio, too.
And good on the radio, and you can have interesting commentators and
and
everything
they
like
allowed
that.
other races do it.
Yes.
Which was very important.
Yes, all of the heroes of the ghetto at that time, you would come up through boxing. It's a great way that ethnicities got integrated into Americana. Was to kind of tell who are the people who are going to become upwardly
Disenfranchised.
mobile.
Who are the disenfranchised? Those are the people that are winning at boxing.
The people who are on their way upwards in society, I think, are often, into boxing.
And now, at that
uh,
time, was that also happening with wrestling?
that there was more minorities. Well, like
Yeah.
the people who were into wrestling a lot of times were people who kind of came from shadier backgrounds. It's pretty much mostly white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. The first black wrestler who was big was Bobo Brazil probably, and he was coming up around this time into the 60s, but he worked forever until
Right.
the 80s. You'd see Bobo Brazil doing shows.
And then Coco Beware came.
Yeah, and then Coco Beware. So there's Bobo Brazil and Coco Beware. It's da-da-da, da-da.
No shit.
And like another game. So there
He had a
were,
parrot.
but yeah, until the Sheik, there was the original Sheik, which was not the Iron Sheik. There was the original Sheik who was Sabu's uncle.
Really?
Huh.
Yeah. So the original Sheik was this guy who would have razor blades on his fingertips.
Whoa.
And he would cut people and stuff like that. And, and he would just really cut you up, slice you up.
Jesus
And the
Christ.
original
They
Sheik,
sliced
so
us, they
he's...
diced us.
Yeah. So he was from Michigan. So he trained Sabu and Rob Van Dam. Sabu and Rob Van Dam trained together.
What?
So they're from... Yeah,
RVD?
Yeah, they're from Battle Creek, Michigan, where Kellogg's is made. Yeah. So he's
Kellogg's
primarily...
another eccentric guy.
What a random place for the Sheik to come
very
from. Battle
weird.
Creek,
No,
Michigan.
well, actually, there's a
Well, Dearborn,
big,
Michigan is the
Dearborn-
biggest Muslim community in the
Oh, really?
US.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
Yeah. So this time he's working out of Memphis, and Memphis is a weird city because it's Northwest Tennessee, and it's the biggest black population in Tennessee. Most of the people live in Memphis, and I had this assumption. I've been there. I don't know if you guys have been to Memphis.
Walking in Memphis.
I have not. I've been to Nashville, but not Memphis.
I've not been to anywhere.
I went there and I went to Jerry Lawler's restaurant and everything. And Memphis,
King? Oh, King!
Yeah.
What's it called? Kings?
It's just called Jerry Lawler's restaurant or something. It's really, and they have wrestling memorabilia, all whatever.
like Andy Kaufman. serving because he's not dead.
What?
It's a fake.
Well, that's where Andy Kaufman, you mentioned like the plant
Yeah.
in the audience. Andy Kaufman was a big wrestling fan, and he got that he would do that
Yeah.
in comedy. Of course, he did the whole wrestling stuff where he'd wrestle women.
Yeah.
But he would do stuff where he would he'd interact with the crowd and have a fight with somebody in the crowd. But it was Bob Zmuda. He would have a plant in the crowd, and he would kind of fuck with the audience to make them question if it was real or not.
Even today, people don't recognize Bob Zmuda.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a weird because Andy Kaufman grew up a huge wrestling fan, so he was watching it in the 50s when it was really big and everything. He was learning a lot of comedy psychology or group psychology,
Yes.
audience
Right.
control. How do you control an audience and everything like that? So, Memphis was this hotbed of wrestling. It always had a long wrestling tradition, but the city was obviously segregated, and Beale Street today is like a tourist area. Back in the late 50s, it was a blacks only area. White people were not allowed to go there. Just the whole neighborhood was segregated, and all of the bars there were called Negro cafes. And so at this time, Sputnik he's a publicity hound. He's really a publicity whore. It's the reason why he's so into this crazy dressing and everything like that. He needs to get attention on himself because that's the only way that you draw a crowd, and he needs to sort of revitalize this on his own because it's in a downward thing. So he thinks, I'm going to go out, a purple suit, a felt hat, diamond tip cane. I'm going to go down to Beale Street and all these
I can't believe
Negro
he didn't get the living
cafes,
shit beat out of him.
and I'm going to go and drink with all these people because he's like, I'm an American. He's like, I'm an American. I can go anywhere I want.
I'm white. I can do whatever I want.
No. He's like, I'm an American. I can go anywhere I want.
Well,
So
I
he would-
mean,
Yeah. Try being one of those black guys and going to another place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he goes down and he gets arrested.
He got arrested by the cops for a white guy being...
Yes. He would get arrested for drinking in black bars. And so he would get arrested for hanging out on Beale Street, and they would charge him with vagrancy and mopery.
Mopery?
Mopery.
Mopery.
Yes, like our...
Yes, well,
yeah.
the meaning has
Porno
changed
samurai.
slightly, yes.
Mopery. Yeah, it comes back around. So this was a term that was used by Jim Crow cops in the South, around this time, this era.
Right.
So it originally
Mopery?
to
He's not,
mope
he's not smiling
around.
over there.
Please,
Yeah.
what is the legal definition
So
of
to
mopery?
mope originally meant to wander aimlessly,
jerk
and
off.
then
Right.
it would be used with other charges to build up your case. So it means loitering while walking on the street without a clear destination.
Loitering while walking.
And-
Loitering while walking, which
Yeah.
is to walk with no clear destination.
There's just cop
Or
speak
purpose.
for we
Yeah.
don't like you, we're gonna pick you up. And
Yeah.
vagrancy
Right.
is one.
Yeah.
Nobody with a fucking diamond tipped cane is a vagrant. No, you know what I mean? You're just
or
not.
aimless. Are
Right.
you
Yeah.
aimless if you have a diamond tip
He
cane?
was probably the first white guy charged with vagrancy and mopery in Memphis.
Probably.
Ever, period.
Right.
Very likely.
They also did that with a lot of union folks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
you're hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, we're protesting.
Yeah, no,
feels like
You're
you're
hanging
kinda-
out.
it's kinda
You look like a
a
bunch of
hangout.
mopes.
They look like they might do
Well,
something.
excuse me, we're exercising our first vote. You're a mope.
You're a mope. That's all you're ever gonna be. So, in the movie Revenge of the Nerds, they actually define it as exposing oneself to a blind person.
Wow.
What? Moping?
Mopery.
Yeah, there's a lot of things.
Exposing oneself to a blind person.
That's what they call
They have a
it.
panty raid
Jesus
in that.
Christ.
But yeah,
Yeah,
but
they
in
also
the
have a rape
60s,
scene.
it only became kind of significant mopery as a charge because they would apply it in the 60s in cases for hippies. So if hippies were on a street corner and the cops just wanted to bust them, they would be like, "Oh, you're a vandal, you're a vagrant, you're moping around."
Moping around.
Yeah, you smoked a little piece of joint. Now you're going to jail.
Piece of joint.
Piece of dope.
Yeah.
I smoked
stick of hash.
with you.
I got a toy stick. I got a toy stick and I got arrested.
The term beatnik actually is
Comes from
related to...
Beating a guy named Nick.
No. It comes from the Beats
Yeah.
and Sputnik.
Really?
Because they had heavy left communist-leaning, quote-unquote.
No fucking way.
I didn't know that.
For real?
Yes.
You've been
Yes,
saving
fucking
that
way.
this whole time.
Aaron, that's good stuff, buddy.
Thank you.
Oh my
That's
god.
a good nugget.
Thanks.
That's a good little nugget.
That's a very good nugget.
I love good nuggets.
Now shut up and let her tell the story.
No, we're talking about it. It's good. It's coming out. So the thing that he did that was also really significant to fight these charges. So it's only a $25 charge, but what he does that's really significant is he brings a black lawyer to represent him in court.
Oh.
Same guy that drove the Cadillac.
Yeah, same
This guy is just climbed his way up.
Yeah, he's just getting got it. He passed the bar
He
exam.
was on his way to law school. When he,
While Sputnik was getting gas, he was taking the bar exam and he's doing it all. But so he was the first white man to be represented by a black attorney in Memphis court. So he would have this black lawyer, he would pay the charge, and then he would just go right back to doing the exact same thing.
Wow.
So he got arrested about 6 or 7 times for doing this.
does he ever say why specifically he had a black lawyer? Was it just...
He said it was just to prove that. He's like, I got a black lawyer and went to court. I told them this was the United States of America and I could go wherever I pleased. He just felt that black people were as good
Useful
as any
for
white
promotion.
person. No, I mean, it worked out to
come on.
promote himself.
Yeah, I
Promoting
think
to who?
we're talking about him now.
Well, what, fucking 50-something years later?
Exactly, it worked. I think he was using.
No, you don't.
Nah, I don't.
I don't know. It's genuinely something that was a conflict for me because I'm like, is he doing this for publicity or is he really doing this because...
There's no benefit. There's no benefit. I think he felt like an outsider. And I
Yeah.
think he felt like a weirdo, and he's like, I want to hang out with weirdos, and I want to hang out with outsiders.
But he did get on the front page of the paper because of
Yes,
it. It was
it
local
was
wrestler gets
absolutely shameless
arrested,
publicity.
and they have the picture of him in court with this black lawyer, and it's
It's primo heel.
heat. It's gathering heat.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And he did use it,
But it's also...
and
Progressive.
specify- yeah, there's.
But he did it too many times for it to just be a gimmick. Because he didn't just do it once. He did it 6 or 7 times. He did it repeatedly.
Well,
Right.
sometimes
To make a
people
point.
repeat themselves.
So that's not going to make the news 6 or 7 times.
Right.
It's just going to be, that's just going to be a thing he does. But he was just really saying to the cops, he's like, I will not stop doing this.
right.
You can arrest me as many times as you want. I'll just pay the fine. I don't care. And
Bring
it's
a black
weird.
lawyer down, kissing him in the courtroom.
Yeah.
I'll keep doing it.
So I
Make out
looked
with
into this. I was like, what is that? What's the money equivalent? So $25 in 1958 money is $260 today. So it was about $2,000 that he paid out over the course of this. Yeah, of getting arrested. Plus
And
all
he
the
was
time that
making
he's
enough
getting
money
arrested.
from wrestling for that to be nothing?
He had a diamond tip cane.
Yeah, John.
okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you
Cadillac.
you just cut off some of the diamond and you hand it over.
And you make dinosaurs out of the mosquito on the inside, and you open a park. and
Dinosaurs.
Charge people.
Wow, Aaron, no, that sounds familiar.
Charge people.
Cat-etition. Cat-etition. So he was doing this and he was getting a lot of notoriety amongst black fans. But at the time, the way that the venues were structured, it would be you would have white fans sitting
on
the
the
floor.
inside.
Yeah, it's structured.
Black fans not allowed.
No, black fans could go into the crow's nest, quote unquote, which is the balcony.
Christ.
The balcony was called the crow's nest.
No.
Yeah.
No.
There just wasn't there was no part of this where they could be like, well, what if we weren't racist for this part?
Yeah.
This is racist from top to bottom.
Yeah.
The only not racist part of
had a
this story
coupon
is where we talk about a plane crash. Because
that
planes
is so
will kill all,
Yeah, that's
regardless
true.
of race.
Yeah, that's true.
Planes know no color. They will kill you dead. The only color they know is black, that black box.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
okay.
yeah, the black box.
Wow.
Yeah. So you have the Ellis Auditorium is this auditorium that mostly wrestle out of. It's like a 10,000 seat auditorium.
A what?
10,000 seat auditorium is the Ellis Auditorium, which was the biggest one where they did wrestling shows, mostly Mondays. Mondays have always traditionally
Monday Night
been-
Raw, dude.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mondays have always
Raw is
traditionally... Raw is war. Pound it.
We just
Try it out.
Aaron and I just fist bumped.
Yeah, they just fisted each other. It was really sweet. But Monday has always been a traditional wrestling day, no matter what. So basically this is happening. Black fans are only allowed in the balcony seats. White fans have all the floor seats. But what started happening with Sputnik's shows is the floor is half empty, the balcony is crowded. Packed. Packed. So basically what he started doing, they started noticing, okay, the balconies are all packed out to the extent that he would go to the door guy and he would pay them off. And he would say, don't give your boss the count for the balcony. Give him enough money. He'd be like, tell them it's whatever it is, 30 people. Say there's 30 seats in the balcony. He'd be like, when your boss asks you for what the count is, tell them there's 30 in the balcony. No matter how many people show up for the balcony. And he'd be like, okay. So then the boss would say, what's the count? He'd say 30 or whatever. But then
But there's like 100.
hundreds and hundreds of black people would be streaming to come to these seats, and they'd only have 30 seats. So they'd say, we have to let them sit on the floor.
Right.
Because they would have turned them down normally, but they're like, they all paid for tickets. So they would be demanding refunds. They're like, so we don't have to refund all these people. We'll let them sit on the floor.
Right.
And so he did this over and over again to the point that, and if a promoter tried to stick it to him and say, no, you can't do this, I don't care, I'll turn my way, he would say, I won't perform.
Right.
So he started refusing to perform unless they let the black fans in. Right. So first he was paying off the door guys, and then he was just outright refusing. And so he was selling out this 10,000-seat auditorium all the time. Just like weekly, he would sell this out. And that, in effect, integrated the building because they just had to let black people sit wherever they want because there's so many of these fans. And so once that happened, once that auditorium, he started working in other places. And then they had to integrate all of them. And then other sports kind of followed from there. So wrestling got integrated, in the fans at least. The product was still pretty black-white. And then, baseball starts going in that way too. And the weird thing is, so they're getting all these, so they start getting more and more attention, more and more crowds to the point that they can't even contain the amount of fans in a 10,000-seat arena. They have to go to baseball stadiums to contain these shows.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, if I remember correctly with baseball, they let women have a league of their own before letting black men play together?
Right.
Yes.
Correct there.
Yes. Once the men were
the
at
integration.
war, to sell candy bars, necessarily. So Memphis was just starting to get televised wrestling. So he faced this hometown hero named Billy Wicks, and Billy Wicks is the babyface. He's the good guy. So in the summer of
babyface Billy.
Babyface Billy Wicks, little babyface Billy. Babyface. He's a good boy. No, they call him white meat baby faces.
White meat babyface.
White meat babyface is your term for your real traditional straight on the line good guy.
Howdy doody.
You Peckerwood, howdy doody looking motherfucker. Gotta not do so many racist impressions in this episode.
You're really good at it.
So in the summer of 1959, they're wrestling at ballparks. They've 13,000 people come to see them. And there's many people were turned away at the gates that they broke down the outfield fences.
Jesus.
Of people of all colors turned away?
Yes. So they just didn't have any seats. So they just broke down the outfield fences. So they had 17,000 people at the height of their match popularity. So this is going on for months in 1959. No national media exposure, no international media exposure. People just basically in the Memphis region knew about this, but it was so huge. So their blow-off match had more than 20,000 people there. And then they had Rocky Marciano, who's the heavyweight boxing champ, refereeing the match. Which is crazy.
Shit.
I'm sure you know the rules really well.
I think he probably forgot the rules by that point.
Yeah, so this was an attendance record that stood in the city of Memphis until the Attitude Era. And that's with international and national media exposure all the time. So this record really stood, and it was crazy. He would outdraw Elvis at the same venues.
No way.
Yeah.
Just him?
Him doing matches and stuff, and him and his programs or whatever.
Lawyer.
And his lawyer.
I think they came for the lawyer.
Which is amazing. So he did all this, and he was so huge, and he basically said that nothing was going to stop him from stealing the show, and he's just this crazy, crusty old bastard. And he would introduce himself, he would shake your hand and say, Sputnik Monroe, world's greatest wrestler. So he was really having a hard time. Well, he was super popular, and most of his popularity is obviously around black people who love him as this hero of civil rights. But then honestly, he said, all I need is the kids and black people. He's like, that's all I need. He's like, because I appeal to all of these colored maids. He's like, the colored maids love me, and they're the ones raising these white children. So they're telling these white kids about how great I am and having them listen to my matches, and that's how I get the youth. He's like, so as long as I got kids and as long as I got black people, I'll be fine. He's like, I don't have to be mainstream. I don't have to appeal to your regular Joe.
But it is also so forward thinking.
It is. Yeah. It's very
it's
about your niche marketing.
All of these white kids are going to be raised by black folks, and they're going to be like, they got me into all this cool shit, and one of them is this white dude that they like because he's into integrating sports.
Yeah, and
it's so fucking brilliant.
Yeah, that's really good.
And it's also just he's not even really going to see the benefit of it. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot of it's going to take place after he's
20
gone.
years later.
But it is very subversive, and that's my favorite part about this story.
Yeah, I love that. That's he was targeting. He was really, he had this kind of, I think he was always attuned to black culture, and he saw it. He saw it in Memphis culture. He said, these maids are raising these kids for these white people. They're not raising their own kids. Most middle class and upper class kids are being raised by their black maids. And he's like, they have a natural affection for black people and who are people who are champions of black people.
Yeah.
They do have an affection for them, and I'm going to key on that and hone in on it. And he knew he knew who he could appeal to. And he was never going to try to be anything other than what he was. He wasn't going to really compromise and try to be a good guy. He really stuck with this villainous, cheating, anything goes, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm the flashiest, strongest man on earth. I'm 235 pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal. You know, I'm the toughest man here. So I think that confidence is really what carried him through. And like, he couldn't beat anybody up. I mean, he carried a gun on him and stuff, but he couldn't like actually beat anyone. But he was just this super crusty old guy. And I think he...
How old was he at this point, being... When you say crusty old
no,
guy,
he got to be crusty because he wrestled into the 80s.
Yeah,
1980s.
So his 60s.
Yes. He just worked forever. But he always had this really tough, gritty persona. He never really looked like a young man. He's one of those guys who just look prematurely old and crusty.
Right.
So, like, at a certain point, like, he has all of these black fans and he has all these young fans, and he's set the record for the record attendance in Memphis, and that's really huge. And he even boxed, he wrestled this boxer named Jersey Joe Walcott.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know that?
Yeah, that's a classic old boxer, Jersey Joe. He's one of those guys that with a name like that became like a stereotype of like boxcar boxers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
So he wrestled that guy and he beat him. He wrestled a bear. And he was like, what else?
Was the bear all chopped up?
Yeah, the bear was
Hey.
like, bunch of blow. He just did
died
that.
in
like,
Kentucky
he
years
just
later.
died in Kentucky.
He set the record for a high dive into a pool of tiny horse piss.
This bear was
tried
all
it
hopped up
together.
at horse pissing shop. So he was like, what can I do? So this is like 1959. So at the time, there's this Western show on called Bat Masterson, which I've never heard of this before, but I looked it up. So Bat Masterson is this show that's based on a real guy who's this dude who's this gambler and a dandy. And he was
dandy?
A dandy.
I've heard of Bat Masterson.
You've heard of Bat Masterson? I've never heard of the cowboy stuff.
I think of somebody who like whips stuff when I hear Bat Masterson.
Well, the thing was, he would just hit stuff with his cane, which was like a bat. He didn't even need to use a gun, although he was great with a gun.
Oh, is that where Batman gets his no gun rule?
No.
I think he gets it from Bob Crane, right? I think that's where he gets it from. The guy who made Batman?
Well,
Bob Kane.
but at first he used to kill people.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's this show, it's on NBC, so it's based on this gunslinger, and he's supposed to be the lawman of Dodge City, Kansas. So the actor who plays him is named Gene Barry. And this show runs from 1958 to 1961. This is going to make sense, but this is just a weird side fact, which is from 55 to 59, this actor, Mason Allen Dinehart, played a 20-something Bat Masterson in this show that was on ABC called The Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp. So in the year 1959, there was a show on NBC about Bat Masterson, and there was a show on ABC that had the character Bat Masterson. So there was two different actors playing the same character in two different shows on two different networks.
Classic Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's
I think
so
things
fucking
never
weird
change.
like
Deep
that. You're like,
Impact.
okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I know the
weird.
name Bat Masterson,
Yes.
but I don't know what it is.
Right. I always
I know
assumed it was
Danny
like a...
Masterson. is,
That rapist, Scientologist.
No,
Allegedly.
Allegedly had sex with an ostrich.
So Gene
well,
Barry.
that I did not hear.
Wait, what? He had sex with an ostrich?
That's a joke.
An ostrich
But it's a
slices-
joke about from Letterkenny, this Canadian TV show.
Oh, really?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's about Laura Prepon.
Okay. All right. Where were
Okay,
we?
so Gene Barry, the actor, plays Bat Masterson. So Sputnik Monroe is from Dodge City, Kansas, and this guy plays on TV the sheriff of Dodge City, Kansas. So Gene Barry, the actor, is going to make an appearance at the Mid-South Fair and Rodeo on 59. So Sputnik plans. He's like, okay, I'm going to go to this rodeo. The guy's going to be on stage making an appearance. I'm going to jump on the stage and punch him in the face. And then I'm going to get on the front page of the newspaper.
Wow.
That was his, like...
Progressive icon
He was
Sputnik
like,
Monroe.
He was like, all right.
Punches hero in the face.
He's like, all right. Alcohol may have been involved in this decision-making process. He's like, okay, awesome thing. He's like, I'm going to do this. This is great. So he gets to the Mid-South Fair and Rodeo. And there's so much security, such a crowd of people, he can't get to Gene Barry. So he's like, oh, my plan's all fucked up. So while this is happening, I guess he says the wrong thing to this cowboy from Paris, Tennessee. So this cowboy, this random dude in the crowd, decks him between 1 and 9 times, according to reports. This cowboy just beats the shit out of Sputnik. And so Sputnik's in the paper next day and it's just like, local cowboy pummels wrestler. And they just have a picture of Sputnik all beaten up with his eye all bloused and screwed up and bloody or whatever. So Sputnik gives a quote and he was like, yeah, I was going to take my hat off to fight him, and he cold cocked me, and then I slipped in some manure and trying to get up, and
And
I
he
couldn't.
beat me 8 more times.
Yeah. So what they did,
Between 1 and 9.
1 and 9. Some people said 9, one people said 1. I don't know. So the promoters around this time are like, shit. Like, what the fuck do we do? So Roy Welch and his son Buddy Fuller, they run this promotion. So they're like, oh shit, this looks really bad. Like our top heel just got the shit beat out of him by some random cowboy.
Right.
This looks bad. So they go, okay, we're gonna find the cowboy.
We're gonna sign him.
We're gonna offer him $1,500 to meet Sputnik in the ring.
Yep.
So the cowboy gets the call and he's like, they're gonna murder me. He's like, this is a setup. They're just gonna kill me in the ring. And he's like, this can't be real. This got to be the dude calling me to lure me to somewhere to kill me.
Right.
So he doesn't show up. So Sputnik's there. Like, so they sold out a 10,000-seat auditorium for this match.
Sputnik's there on crutches.
And Sputnik's there just like ready to fight him. So what they did is they got another random wrestler and they go, this guy is from Paris, Tennessee, and he's a friend of the Cowboys.
Oh,
And
his friend.
Sputnik's is his friend.
Brokeback
And
Mountain situation.
Sputnik's gonna fight him, and we'll see how that goes. So Sputnik obviously like beats the crap out of him, and this guy so he just gets all his
Kisses
heat
him.
back. Yeah, he just gets all his heat back. So it's just like this insane publicity stunt that would just worked. And he did things like he ran for sheriff. And he ran for sheriff of Memphis, and he said that people thought prostitution and incest would flourish. Motherfucker would become a household word. And he said...
Well, they're right about pretty much all that.
He said, I could have run for mayor and made it. I could have blackmailed the city. I could have done anything I wanted. I was general of a little black army.
Wow.
He said city officials feared his influence and tried to get him to leave town.
Damn.
Which is crazy. So this is all happening. So he kind of tries to maintain his popularity. So in the later part of his career, he had a black tag team partner named Norval Austin. So this is like the 60s into the 70s. They were working this together. So after they defeated their white opponent, Monroe would dump a can of black paint on the man and yell into the mic, "Black is beautiful!" And then
he would throw tar and
Austin would throw white paint on him and say, "White is beautiful." And the two would yell in unison, "Black and white together is beautiful."
That's
Gorgeous.
That's great.
That's good stuff.
So
How is this not an Owen Wilson Don Cheadle movie?
Yeah.
I don't know.
they're trying to make a movie about him for HBO, and it got developed, but it hasn't been made. But so
For real?
Yeah.
What?
So he only retired in 1988. So he had like a 30-year wrestling career.
Jesus.
So then, it's crazy because I'm watching this documentary. So it's October 1999. He's in Memphis to shoot a documentary and referee a match. He's on this local talk show, and he's talking about Sam Phillips, one of the wrestlers there. And he's like, Sam Phillips and I were supermen. We didn't leap over tall buildings. We tore them down. And when he says that, you see all these black men in the crowd, young men, cheering him. And he's this cultural icon. It's just amazing. And his boots are in the Rock and Soul Museum in Memphis. And he's in this Rock and Soul Museum, and it just says his role in integrating.
Is that a
cultural icon?
A museum for shoes?
It's a museum
With the
for
soul
shoes.
joke?
Rock and
Okay,
Soul.
okay.
Good God, Aaron.
Listen,
I was right
It's
to be
every
mean
week.
to you.
All right.
I was right to be mean to you. So basically, he just
Black and white are beautiful.
black and white are beautiful
All right, that's
together. They're beautiful together. So he made this legacy for himself, and people still in the state of Memphis, city of Memphis, state of Tennessee, they know who you mean. Like if you were to mention this guy, they would say, "I know who Sputnik Monroe is. He's a cultural icon."
He was
and a
an
legend."
N-word lover.
He was an N-word lover. Most famously an N-word lover. But by 2001, he was just living in a 2-bedroom apartment with his wife in Houston, working at a gas station.
Married?
No shit.
Married, yeah. And
God bless
he
him.
had 3 kids. But
Little Sputniks.
he wrestled for 30 years, but it's just, he lived a crazy, extravagant lifestyle. So
Right.
he's just working at a gas station, and he died in 2006 living in Florida. He had 3 kids. His son was a wrestler. His brother was one of his managers for a long time. And he really, in terms of an ending for a wrestler, dying in 2006,
In old age,
dying of old
yeah.
age in Florida with
Yeah.
your family around
Yeah.
you is
Right.
a good way to go with
a
your
good way to
cats
go
and your
out.
wife.
It really is.
And fondly remembered by everyone, still an icon. And
Now, do you think that there's anybody that stole from him directly as far as his shtick? His wrestling.
In terms of his shtick of like loving all people, or like
Was that his
No.
shtick?
I mean like his like shit talk and stuff like that. Like
yeah. Because like if you see like his promos,
Ric Flair seems kind of like
It
the
is very
diamond
much
ring.
like-
I got the gold watch. I got the diamond
yeah,
ring.
it was all. So Ric Flair was obviously he's the Nature Boy. So it's the Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, who's before Ric Flair, who had the blonde hair and had the robe. And Sputnik, yeah, it was these promos that were like that. They're like, you think you can get me on, like chicken shit prices? I'm a diamond ring Cadillac man. Like, you got to pay out the nose to get me to come down to here. And the thing is, it's like, yeah, his promo style, his extravagant lifestyle, it's obviously like a pimp thing.
Shit, bro.
He's like, you can't get me down here. It's like, oh, what am I wearing? Like a baseball sneaker or carrying a watermelon? What do you think I am? Like he's just like, he's like, you expect me to come down here on a Greyhound bus, send me out in a Cadillac? He's like, kind
I'll
of
pick
thing.
up some black guy to drive me here.
Yeah.
I'll give him kisses.
That's the main thing that we remember from this story is that he kissed a black guy.
It's transgressive.
It's very transgressive and progressive. But yeah, it's a funny thing because it's like, I think a lot of people did pick up on that style of promo. This is like 10 years before Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, all that kind of thing. And Muhammad Ali mentions that he watched wrestling as a kid. Like Mike Tyson, huge wrestling fan. Andy Kaufman, huge wrestling fan. And this was really in the cultural landscape of, there was the white hipster. There's always the white hipster in jazz, the jazz fan. But white people didn't really co-opt black style in the 50s. That was not a thing that white people pretending to be black people or acting like they were quote-unquote black. That was not really a thing that people did.
No, until
Right.
the beats. Until the beats.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Norman Mailer wrote, I think,
The white hipster, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but also Muhammad Ali said specifically the reason I started talking shit is
Was
that
wrestling.
I saw
Gorgeous George
wrestlers
and
Yes.
wrestlers.
do it, and then the fucking place was filled.
And I've always
And-
thought that wrestling is like stand up is another version of it, but wrestling is like the training ground if you want to be a star who's good at everything.
Yeah.
The biggest stars
Yeah.
in the world come out of wrestling.
Right.
Because it's acting.
It's mic skills, it's improv, it's physicality, it's a non-stop grind every
Right.
day of the
Yeah.
year on the road.
And you
get
live
good
that
at taking
character.
drugs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
live that character, and you need to know how to embody that character and continue it all the time. And there's a thing where now it's like wrestlers don't really live that gimmick 24/7. Some of them do, to the point where like Bray Wyatt, who's a current wrestler, he even in a court case was in character as Bray Wyatt. The character didn't didn't testify as himself.
Yeah.
Or like the Wild Samoans got pulled over with Hulk Hogan, and they pretended to not speak English to the cop because they were Wild Samoans who couldn't speak English, and they got
yeah.
arrested
The cops
because they
should've put
wouldn't
that
answer
together.
the cops'
They're too wild.
questions.
Yeah, too.
They wouldn't answer the cops' questions,
too
and he just
wild.
took them into custody. Like they
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
really keep.
Sorry, brother, they're wild men.
Yeah, they're Wild Samoans.
but it is,
whatever.
it is like the corner of like subculture that's like where all of like horror movies and comic books and everything is like it really like is like you're like pushing like your like darkest weirdest things when you're like doing shit in wrestling. So
Yeah.
it's weird. It's like weirdly like normal to me that like desegregation started there first because it was like. Also, the place where people would go and be super racist.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's
Because it was
also-
like
right.
on
Yeah.
its face.
Yes.
It was just like,
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's ring psychology is what is going to draw the biggest hatred out of you. Like in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, it's funny because Jim Cornette talks about him. So Smoky Mountain Wrestling, they had New Jack. And
Yeah.
they had him with the Gangsta. So him and his tag team partner, they instituted an affirmative action policy that they would say that they could pin someone with a 2 count because of affirmative action.
yes, exactly, yeah. They were totally playing that up.
So
It's
people
good.
would
Brilliant.
lose their
Brilliant.
minds
Yeah.
Right.
and like just be so angry at this. And like the more you treat something like this that is real, the more genuine emotions it brings out of people and the more really people you try this. But the most thing that I thought was really interesting about this story was it's kind of that changed my mind about it was like when we talk about desegregation and integration and everything, there's always a sense that people think that white people were allowed to go wherever they wanted. And they think that segregation was only a thing that was meant to corral blacks and correct their behavior. But segregation really was for white people as well, to keep them from relating to black people, to keep them from having sympathy for black people,
Right.
to keep them from understanding them, to
Seeing
create-
them as people, period.
seeing them as people, to create a cultural divide, to have a sort of lack of familiarity, because God forbid you have poor people uniting
Realizing
together.
that they have more in common than they do.
Right, no,
Yes.
you have to be afraid of these people.
Yeah, they're not like you.
And if you go over there and find out you don't need to be,
Right.
that's going to be problematic for us.
Yeah, and that's what he did. It was he just said, we're all people who want to see a good story, see a good match, see a good fight, see someone work their ass off in the ring. So I mean,
We all want to see somebody get their ass beat in the ring.
Yeah.
we all
At the
do.
end of the day,
Right.
well, okay.
Whoever they are.
Yeah,
they
black,
bleed red.
white, Russian.
I want them
Yeah.
to get fucked up. That's what I want.
Yeah. So I think it's a good lesson about
Paint 'em black, paint 'em
how
white.
segregation ruled to create everyone's behavior. Because it's a weird thing about when you talk about that guy kissing him on the cheek. Because I was looking at integration laws and everything. There's been times in this country where segregation was not legally mandated, where the races could mix together, except in the case of marriage. Even from colonial times, the 13 colonies, marriage between black people and white people always outlawed. Or white people and Native Americans. So any sort of socializing on that level was always forbidden until like the 60s.
Well, yeah, Loving Virginia.
Yeah, Loving versus Virginia.
They
Yeah.
made a movie out of that.
They did.
But there was even laws against marrying like Filipinos in Oklahoma and weird shit like that. So
Because
yeah.
all those Filipinos in Oklahoma.
It's the hot. It's a hotbed.
La la la.
It's like
Scourge.
So that was
she can't marry Dave.
So that was what I wanted to talk about with Sputnik. He's a cultural icon. He's hilarious. He's funny. He's violent. He's a weird guy. He looks crazy. That's honestly why I thought he would be awesome to talk about. He's a hero. He's a heroic weirdo.
Yes.
He is.
Yes.
He
Heroic
is.
And a
weirdo.
heel.
And a heel.
It is
And a bad guy.
great to also be a hero while being a heel.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It is really great.
Yeah, and they asked him. They said,
Anti-heroes are the best.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree.
they are. They asked him, he was asked by a reporter, do you feel like a do-gooder? And he said, oh, hell no. I'm not a do-gooder. I'm a doer. Just a doer.
Ah.
Oh hell no.
Oh, hell no. Good? I'm going to be arrested tonight.
$25.
I'm nasty.
Take this cane.
I'll bite your face.
I mean, that's what like.
Steel.
That's what I was like.
Steel and sex appeal.
A guy with enough money, where it's like, what the fuck is $25? Oh, I'm gonna. So this is a show. This is a show for you. Well,
Yeah.
then I'm gonna make it a fucking show because I don't give. This money doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
So you want to see some shit here?
Right.
But it's insane. I mean, you look at the case like Mississippi Burning, like civil rights people did get murdered.
Yeah.
People got straight up murdered, and he had a gun on him, and all wrestlers pretty much carried guns until like the 70s or 80s. But like,
Right.
yeah, white people did get murdered for acting this way. Yeah, until the 60s.
I think some
so-
black people might have got killed too.
Yes, they did as well. Yeah, but
I've heard
even-
about it. I don't know if it's
No,
true.
but even
Rumor,
people,
hearsay.
like I was looking at, it's funny because it's like even people who were considered like progressive at this time didn't take these stands and everything. I mean, like white liberals at the same time, like Harold Ickes, who is like, he was Secretary of the Interior under Roosevelt. He was the president of the chapter of the NAACP.
Never met a black guy in his life.
No, he had met plenty of them. But there was a senator from North Carolina wrote him a letter, and he said, you're trying to undermine segregation. And Harold Ickes wrote him a letter back, and this is public. He just goes, he's like, I have never in my life put any effort into undermining segregation. He's like, I've never fought against it. He goes, I would like to see the black man get his due, but I think that will happen when they advance themselves in education and commerce. Economically, he's like, I have never tried to undo segregation. I never.
Well,
will.
there's a large there was a large population of
crazy.
black people who didn't want segregation. Like all those traditionally black colleges, you had a lot of people who
Don't rock the boat. Yeah, a lot of
were doing well in that system. The Negro Leagues, the
Well,
baseball
yeah, I mean,
Negro Leagues, they made millionaires.
Well, some of the idea was we know how to take care of ourselves.
Yes.
We don't want you meddling.
Right.
Yeah, we talked about it in the Essential Page episode.
Yeah.
For
Yes.
sure. Yeah, there was a thing that was like, okay, now you're
Yes.
going to get taken in by white business, and
Right.
we're all going to be fucked.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The moment you tell us how to teach our children is the moment that you're interrupting how
Right.
we're teaching them.
But I think there was also a sense for white people that this is intractable. This is not a fight worth having. That the South will always be like this,
Right.
and we cannot interfere in these states' issues because this is just how they are, and this is how
Right.
they will be forever. And we can try to advance the black man, but we have to advance him in this way, and this way, and this way. That's within the system.
Right.
There was so many white liberals at this time who would be sort of proponents of the black people. They would say that they cared. Like Eleanor Roosevelt, what did she ever do for segregation? She claimed that she was for human rights and worldwide and would
Right.
fighting for rights and whatever.
They took it
They
as a
didn't do
given,
anything.
as a constant.
Yeah, they were like, segregation is intractable. And this is just one man who had barely any education who says, no, it's not intractable. It's not because I decide it's not.
Right.
Right. Yeah, we're going to mix it up.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
walk
he
down
just
there,
decides the
We're
way
gonna
that it
hang out.
has been
chop it up.
is not the way that it needs to be. Why does this need to continue this
Yes.
way?
And I
Right.
mean, here's a guy who's actually in the middle of it,
Yeah.
who's actually living it day to day,
Yeah.
going, well, I'm just going to do this. And
But I think it is also because it is a subculture, and this is like my thing is that because I love subcultures and stuff like that, and
Subhuman.
I love but I think
Subcultures are where culture
subcultures
comes from.
and countercultures too. When all the shit was going on in Northern Ireland, all of the fucking punk bands that were out of Northern Ireland were half Protestant, half Catholic.
Yep.
They were totally not involved with all of the conflict bullshit that was going on. They were totally like, we're not doing that. We're doing this instead. We're doing art.
Because because mainstream culture is almost a burden.
Yes.
With all of the rules that it has, like segregation, or whether it's high society or whatever, there's so much snobbery and circumstance and pomp and circumstance involved that it becomes a job in and of itself.
Right.
And it's the people in the lower classes who have they don't have time for that shit. They're just trying to survive. So it was always, even if it was like the American Revolution, it was the lower classes, black, white, Irish, Italian, all of them were all just, not Italian yet, but they were all just mixing it up because they didn't have the luxury of
choice.
Caring about that shit.
Yeah, they also exist outside the economic system because, like the super rich and the very poor don't really use cash very much. Really super poor people usually barter with each other for things, and the super rich kind of get things on credit. So for Sputnik, he was already, by the virtue of being a wrestler, it's kind of like being an actor or something. You exist outside the social structure because he drives from place to place. He lives off of his wits. He lives off of his body.
Yeah.
He has a job that he got himself. It's not because he's part of a social club. It's not because of who his dad is. It's not because of the church that he goes to. He built his career on his own. And I think he's sort of forward thinking that America was very still used to, you're an elk, you're a Mason, you're part of a union. Your dad did this. Your father
even
did
in
that.
wrestling, your dad
Even in
did
wrestling, yeah. And he's very forward thinking that he's like, I'm going to choose my own profession. I'm going to choose my own destiny. I'm going to choose to hang out with the people that I want to.
Yeah.
And he already existed outside of mainstream society. And he's like, this is bullshit. I'm not going to keep up white, traditional, suburban parenthood, fatherhood, masculinity, whatever that is, whiteness. I'm going to do whatever I want.
I'm going to kiss random black fellas that pick up on
I'm
you.
going to wear a purple suit and a Hamburg and kiss this black guy and go drink at a bar and probably have sex with black women. They don't get that into that, but I imagine it happens. So good for him.
Consensually, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, I think we're gonna kick it there on consensually, of course. Good night, everybody. My name's John Fahey. I love you.
I'm Aaron Pita. I care about all of you.
Thank you for listening, Laura Crawford.